Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, boys and squirrels and girls and everybody else. Damn, looks like I'm hanging here by myself. Well, enjoy this while you can, because it's all coming off probably tomorrow or the next day. I'm gonna go clean shaven, so this nice dark skin of mine can be dark without the beard for Italy. So ought to look nice, ought to be pretty good. So yeah, I'm ramping up for Italy. Amazing trip coming up for that, and I can't wait to be showing some of those wonderful places out there, because I think it's going to be pretty neat. So yeah, it's been an interesting week. Our weekend was on with the expert and Volstorm and White Rabbit, Melissa Jane, and just a whole group of people, which was an absolute blast. Enjoyed that so much. And then I did a show with Winning Reality, which was really fun. Enjoyed that one also. So some good stuff, going on this month. I guess everybody's just chilling. Everybody should be out and about, enjoying their days, enjoying their time. That's what I've been doing. I've been enjoying working out in the yard, getting my backyard looking nice, and just stress free from all of the weird stuff that goes on in YouTube and the world in general. Just enjoying my backyard. Crazy stuff going on out there. I guess I hadn't seen it, but I saw that Elon was having Ron DeSantis on. It's ramping up for the next election, so this should be pretty good. This next election cycle should be really interesting. Don't see it not being. Well, hey, Snafu, good to see you, brother. Yeah, currently it looks like it is just you, and I'm here too. I mean, you're welcome to hang out as long as you like. I know everybody's probably checking out Melissa Jane doing her IKEA stream. Yeah, that's she'll be doing that for a little bit. Yes, she's gorgeous. We all know that. Me, I'm just doing the boring old Federalist. Or the Federalist Papers. I think that coming into this election, this is Melissa Jane. Oh, if you haven't seen Melissa Jane, man, oh man. Yeah, she's cool. She's on the experts quite a bit. She's great. Great people too. But she's got her own thing going on, and I'm not going to be dissuaded because other people are streaming at the same time as me. They're welcome to check me out, check her out, check out anybody you want. Hit the like, subscribe, enjoy it. There's always something going on out here. But that being said, I guess I could probably get into this one. It was something that I had sort of been paying attention to at one point in time. That was, I found it to be like rather interesting, because these essays that were written were in support of ratifying the Constitution of the United States, and more so the reason behind the need for that ratification. And a lot of people don't understand what ratification means. It means to make it a legitimate document where everybody basically adopts it, says, yes, this is, we're gonna follow these rules. We're gonna lay down these laws, and these are what we're gonna do. And this is some of the thinking, and you have to understand this back in the 1700s, it's getting ready to hit 1800s, that they wrote this, and how thoughtful that they were in doing so. I mean, it was an impressive undertaking, and seeing how well it stands up over the test. It's a testament to uh, to the work that they were doing, the time that they spent. So, no time like the present. So, when the people of America reflect that they are now called upon to decide a question which, in its consequences, must prove one of the most important that have ever engaged their intention, the propriety of taking a very comprehensive as well as a very serious view of it, and it will be evident. Nothing is more than the indispensable necessity of government, and it is unequally undeniable that whenever and however it is instituted, the people must cede to some of their natural rights in order to vest it with requisite powers. It is well worthy of consideration, therefore, whether it would conduce more to be interested in the people of America than they should, to all general purposes, be one nation under one federal government, or that they should divide themselves into separate confederacies and give to the head of each the same kind of powers which they are advised to place in one national government. And this really is taking that that portion of the United States being united, making it one whole piece for everyone. And it's this right here is quite impressive that they're taking that foresight to actually, you know, do this and have this conversation. It's like talking about a national divorce before it ever even happens. Hey, Confederacies, that word gets lost. Yes, it does. Yes, it does. It has until lately been received an uncontradicted opinion that the prosperity of the people of America, depended on their continuing firmly united, and the wishes, prayers, and efforts of our best and wisest citizens have been constantly directed to that object. But politicians, they now appear to insist that this opinion is erroneous. Thank you. That's a hard word. Erroneous. And that instead of looking for safety and happiness in union, we ought to seek out in a division of the states into distinct confederacies or sovereignties. So they're talking about having that national divorce. Like I said, this thought, 1700s, is not much different than people want to see happen currently. Instead of a United States, they're wanting a divided states. But, as he says, however extraordinary this new doctrine may appear, it is nevertheless has its advocates, and certain characters who were much opposed to it formerly are present of the number. Whatever may be the arguments or inducements which have wrought this change in the sentiments and declarations of these gentlemen, it certainly would not be wise in the people at large to adopt these new political tenets without being fully convinced that they were founded in truth and sound policy. It has often given me pleasure to observe that independent America was not composed of detached and distant territories, but that one connected, fertile, wide-spreading country was the portion of our Western Sons of Liberty. Province has a particular manner blessed in it in a variety of soils and productions, and watered it with innumerable streams for the delight and accommodation of its inhabitants. A succession of navigable waters forms a kind of chain around its borders as if to bind it together. Well, that's sort of poetic right there. While the most notable rivers in the world, running at convenient distances, present them with highways for easy communication of friendly aids and the mutual transportation and the exchange of their various commodities. With equal pleasure, I have often taken notice that province has been get pleased to give this one connected country to one united people. And you have to understand, this is before they even had gone to the other side of the country and found an ocean. They hadn't gone west yet. They're still in those little bitty northern states, a very small area. They have no idea how vast this country is at this time. With equal pleasure, as I've often taken notice, I already read that part, professing the same blah blah, a people descended from the same ancestors, speaking the same language, professing the same religion, attached to the same principle of government, very similar in their manners and customs, and who, by their joint counsels, arms, and efforts, fighting side by side throughout a long and bloody war, have nobly established general liberty and independence. This country and its people seem to have been made for each other, and it appears as if it was the design of Providence that an inheritance so proper and convenient for a band of brethren, band of brothers, united to each other by the strongest ties, should never be split into a number of unsocial, jealous, and alien sovereignties. Similar sentiments have hitherto prevailed among all orders and denominations of men among us. To all general purpose, we have uniformly been one people, each individual citizen, everywhere enjoying the same national privileges, rights, and protections. As a nation, we have made peace and war. As a nation, we have vanquished our common enemies. As a nation, we have formed alliances and made treaties and entered into various compacts and conventions with foreign states. Impressive. A strong sense of value and blessing of union induced the people at a very early period to institute the federal government to preserve and perpetuate it. They formed it almost as soon as they had a political existence, nay, at a time when their habitations were in flames, when many of their citizens were bleeding, and while the progress of hostility and desolation left little room for those calm and mature inquiries and reflections which must never precede the formation of wise and well-balanced government for a free people. It is not to be wondered at that a government instituted so many times so inauspicious should on experiment be found greatly deficient and inadequate to the purpose it was so intended to answer. John Jay is pretty poetic. God. This intelligent people perceived and regretted these defects, with still continuing, no less attached to union than enamored of liberty. They observed the danger which immediately threatened the former and more remotely the latter, and being persuaded that ample security for both could only be found in a national government more wisely framed, with one voice convened the late convention at Philadelphia to take that important subject under consideration. This convention, composed of men who possessed the confidence of the people, and many whom had become highly distinguished by their patriotism, their virtue, and wisdom in times which tried the minds and hearts of men, undertook the arduous task. In a mild season of peace, with minds unoccupied by other subjects, they passed many months in cool, uninterrupted, and daily consultation, and finally, without having been awed by power or influenced by any passions except love for their country, they presented and recommended to the people the plan produced by their joint and very unanimous councils. Man, this guy is right. Wow. Admit, for so is the fact that this plan is only recommended. It is not imposed, yet it be remembered that it is neither recommended to blind appropriation, don't know that word, approbation, or to blind reprobation. Okay, approbation, reprobation. Got it. But to that sedate and candid consideration, which the magnitude and importance of the subject demand, and which it certainly ought to receive, but this, it was remarked in the foregoing number of this paper, is more to be wished than expected that it may be so considered and examined. Experience on a former occasion teaches us not too sanguine in such hopes. I think that's right, sanguine. I don't know. Not that smart. It is not yet forgotten that well-grounded apprehensions of imminent danger induced the people of America to form the memorable Congress of 1774. Hey, that's fine. I appreciate it. I appreciate it. I really do, Daisy Girl. I'm hoping that that it does really well. The first one was a slow start, but I think that was just an introduction to give an idea of what this was all about. What these short essays. Well, some of them short, some of them not so much. This particular essay was written, I believe, in 4 parts, and it's pretty impressive. Hey, T-Rex, good to see you, brother. Good to see you. That body recommended certain measures to their constituents. Thank you. And the event proved their wisdom. Yet it is fresh in our memories how soon the press began to teem with pamphlets and weekly papers against those very measures. Not only many of the officers of government who obeyed the dictates of personal interest, but others from mistaken estimate of consequences or the undue influence of former attachments. Because you have to understand, whenever he's talking about the undue influence of former attachments, that has to do with a lot of these people still had great ties with England. And you know, these are people that have been in the United States for quite some time. Before it was the United States, when it was just a colony of Great Britain. Or whose ambition aimed at objects which did not correspond with the public good, were indeflatable. I don't know that word. Read it in context, it maybe will make sense. Unforgiving, basically, in their efforts to persuade the people to reject the advice of that patriotic Congress. Okay. So basically, whose ambition aimed at objects which did not correspond with the public good. Basically, they were giving a hard time to people and rejecting what Congress had to say. Makes sense now. Many indeed were deceived and deluded, but the great majority of people reasoned and decided judiciously, and happy that they are reflecting that they did so. They considered that the Congress was composed of many wise and experienced men, that being convened from different parts of the country, they brought with them and communicated to each other a variety of useful information, that in the course of the time they passed together in inquiring into and discussing the true interests of their country. They must have acquired very accurate knowledge on that head, that they were individually interested in the public liberty and prosperity, and therefore it was not less their inclination than their duty to recommend only such measures as, after the most mature deliberation, they really thought prudent and advisable. Might want to be prudent and advisable in your deliberations. These and similar consideration then induced the people to rely greatly on the judgment and the integrity of Congress, and they took their advice, notwithstanding the various arts and endeavors used to deter them from it. Yeah, that's a little creepy right there. A lot of people trying to talk them out of signing the Constitution, or even agreeing to it, or finishing it. But if the people at large had reason to confide in the men of that Congress, few of whom had been fully tried and generally known, because some of these actually were generals and fought in the Revolutionary War, still greater reason that they have now to respect the judgment and advice of that convention. For it is well known that some of the most distinguished members of that Congress, who have been since tried and justly approved for patriotism and abilities, and who have grown old in acquiring political information, were also members of this convention, and carried it to their acclimated knowledge and experience. It is worthy of the remark that not only the first, but every succeeding Congress has, as well as the late convention, have invariably joined with the people in thinking that the prosperity of America depended on its union. That's very important. That the prosperity of America depended on its union. To preserve and perpetuate it was the great object of the people in forming that convention. And it is also the great object of the plan which the convention has advised them to adopt. With what propriety, therefore, or for what good purposes are attempts at this particular period made by some men who depreciate the importance of the Union, or why it is suggested that 3 or 4 confederacies would be better than one? I am persuaded in my own mind that the people have always thought right in this subject, and that their universal and uniform attachments to the cause of the Union rests on great and weighty reasons, which I shall endeavor to develop and explain in some ensuing papers. They who promote the idea of substituting a number of distinct confederacies in the room of plan of the convention seem clearly to foresee that the rejection of it would put the continuance of the Union in the utmost jeopardy. That certainly would be the case, and sincerely wish that it had. It may be as clearly foreseen by every good citizen that whenever the dissolution of the Union arrives, America will have reason to exclaim in the words of the poet, "Farewell, a long farewell to all my greatness." So what he's saying throughout this long essay is that our Union, the United States of America at the time, which was 13 colonies, was great. It was greater than these that would want to separate. Those 13 colonies were not very large. If you look at a map, just look at New York and all of the little cities, countries, states that each one of those could have been, and how small they would have been. They hadn't even explored the vastness of the United States at this point in time. They had no idea how big this place was. Hey, good to see you, Nandor. Good to see you. Always good to see Nandor's Man Bun, one of my very first subscribers. And speaking of which, make sure that you hit that like and subscribe down there. Because, well, this is the place to do it. I'm also streaming over on Rumble, so if you ever get bored of watching YouTube and just like, you know what, I'll just show them some love. You're always welcome to come over there. So this does continue on with the Federalist number 3. And this is why I chose this one, because it still says, this still is part of the concerning dangers from foreign force and influence. Still John Jay. Man, he is good at the way that he writes. To the people of the state of New York. So all of these are being written in New York papers. And those papers are being spread around throughout the United States. And as they're being spread, at some point, Hamilton actually took all of those essays and created a book. And that was pretty difficult at the time that he did it. And this all of these writings come from the Library of Congress. It's good stuff. It is not a new observation that the people of any country, if, like the Americans, intelligent and well-informed, seldom adopt and steadily persevere over many years in an erroneous opinion respecting their interests, that consideration naturally tends to create great respect for the high opinion which the people of America have so long and uniformly entertained of the importance of their continuing firmly united under one government, vested with sufficient powers for all general and national purposes. I think I need to check something really quick. If you lose my voice, don't worry, it'll come back. I've had an issue with some of this where it works sometimes. Sometimes it doesn't. So let's see. It looks like it's okay. It's working like it should, as far as I can tell. Crazy. Weird stuff going on with my computer lately. Must be them there Chinese. The more attentively I consider and investigate the reason which appeared to have given birth to this opinion, the more I become convinced that they are cogent, and conclusive. Wow, so he's pretty sure. Among the many objects to which a wise and free people find it necessary to direct their attention, that of providing for their safety seems to be the first. The safety of the people, doubtless, has relation to a great variety of circumstances and considerations, and consequently affords great latitude to those who wish to define it precisely and comprehensively. At present, I mean only to consider it as it respects security for the preservation of peace and tranquility, as well against dangers from foreign arms and influence. Because these guys are knowing that there's always that possibility that another war could break out. And being a divided United States, not adopting the Constitution, not ratifying it, not solidifying it's going to lead to a downfall. As well as from dangers of the like kind arising from domestic causes, as the former of these comes first in order as proper, it should be the first discussed. So, talking about having not only foreign, but internal strife within this country. Let us therefore proceed to examine whether the people are not right in their opinion, that a cordial union under an efficient national government affords them the best security, that they can be devised against hostilities from abroad. The number of wars which have happened or will happen in the world will always be found to be in proportion to the number and weight of the causes, whether real or pretended, which provoke or invite them. If this remark be just, it becomes useful to inquire whether so many just causes of war are likely to be given by united America as by disunited America. For if it should turn out that united America will probably give the fewest, then it will follow that in this respect, the Union tends to preserve the people in a state of peace with other nations. The just causes of war, for the most part, arise either from violation of treaties or from direct violence. America has formed treaties with no less than 6 foreign nations, and all of them, except Prussia, are maritime, and therefore able to annoy us and injure us. She also extensive commerce with Portugal, Spain, and Britain, and with respect to the two latter has in addition to the circumstance of neighborhood to attend to. Hey, Puffer P, good to see you. Good to see you, Puffer P. Nice. It is of high importance to the peace of America that she observe the laws of the nation towards all of these powers, and to me it appears evident that this will be more perfectly and punctually done by one national government than it could be by either 13 separate states or by 3 or 4 distinct confederacies. Because once an efficient national government is established, the best men in the country will not only consent to serve. Oh, let's get that I out of my head here. Pull it out. That way I can see. But will generally be appointed to manage it. For although town or country or other contracted influence may place men in state assemblies or senates or courts of justice or executive department, yet more general and extensive reputation for talents and other qualifications will be necessary to recommend men to offices under the national government, especially as it will have the widest field for choice and never experience that want of proper persons, which is not uncommon in some of the states. Hence, it will result that the administration, the political councils, and the judicial decisions of the national government will be more wise, systematical, and judicious than those individual states, and consequently more satisfactory with respect to other nations, as well as more safe with respect to us. Need a trip review? Oh no, I haven't left yet. My trip will be coming up in June. So middle of June. And I may do some streams while I'm out, or just upload some video. We'll see. We'll see how it goes. Hopefully it works well. I'm working on getting a gimbal, so that way I can actually film. Tease? No, there's no tease. No tease at all. But I will tease you with this. I will tease you with this. All the beard is going to get shaved off tonight or tomorrow. Like the next time that you see me on a stream, it'll all be gone. Get all nice and cleaned up. It's so I can get nice and tan under here. So well, your shorts were cool. You like my shorts, baby? It's okay. It's all right. Thank you. No, those particular shorts were from let's see, France, Belize, which would have been the year before. So yeah, those are build up. Those are build up to what's coming. I've got some good stuff. Do it on the night women ain't expecting it. I didn't say it. Shh. Always do it whenever they're expecting it. Unless you want to play burglar. Shame on you. Shame on you. Because under the national government, treaties and articles of treaties, as well as the laws of nations, will always be expounded in one sense and executed in the same manner, whereas adjudications, thank you, adjudications on the same points and questions in 13 states or 3 or 4 confederacies will not always accord or be consistent. And that, as well as from the variety of independent courts and judges appointed by different and independent governments, as from different local laws and interests, which may affect and influence them. The wisdom of the convention in committing such questions to the jurisdiction and the judgment of courts appointed by and responsible only to one national government cannot be too much commended. So what's that? Hey, we don't kink shame here. Hey, that's okay. That's okay. I don't kink shame anybody. If that's what you're into, I'll play a little bit of burglar with you. Oh, trying out a new lawnmower. Nice. Nice. I know somebody else that needs a new lawnmower. Yeah, see, even Puffer P agrees. She likes to hit that like, y'all. And you know the expert. He's trying to mow his lawn today. He's out there with some garden shears. He's just walking along, snipping. Just don't anger the blue dog. Don't anger the blue dog. He's telling you, you gotta mow for him. Well, of course, I know you liked it. Because the prospect of present loss or advantage may often tempt the governing party in one or two states to swerve from good faith and justice, but those temptations not reaching the other states, and consequently having little or no influence on the national government, the temptation will be fruitless, and good faith and justice will be preserved. The case of the treaty of peace with Britain adds great weight to this reasoning, because even if the governing party in a state should be disposed to resist such temptations, yet as such temptations may and commonly do result from circumstances peculiar to the state, and may affect a great number of the inhabitants, the governing party may not always be able, if willing, to prevent the injustice mediated or to punish the aggressors. But the national government, not being affected by those local circumstances, will neither be induced to commit the wrong themselves, nor want power or inclination to prevent or punish its commission by others. Ooh, it's pretty dark. So far, therefore, is either designed or accidental violations of treaty and the laws of a nation afford just causes of war. And they had no idea that the Civil War would be happening not too far down the road. They had no idea that that was going to happen. Those zero turn things. Oh, yes. I love it. Oh, yeah, it's nice. One of those zero turn things. Yeah, you love the zero turn. I'm telling you. So worth it. So worth it. I'll be hopping back and forth. Well, that's absolutely fine. That's absolutely fine. We don't mind at all. You're such a big help, really. As to those just causes of war which proceed from direct and unlawful violence, it appears equally clear to me that one good national government affords vastly more security against dangers of that sort than can be derived from any other quarter, because such violences are more frequently caused by the passions and interests of a part than of the whole, or one or two states than of the Union. Not a single Indian war has yet been occasioned by aggressions of the present federal government, feeble as it is, but there are several instances of Indian hostilities have been provoked by the improper conduct of individual states, who either unable or unwilling to restrain or punish offenses have given occasion to the slaughter of many innocent inhabitants. So they had an idea. You like the face, right? Mm-hmm. Yep. The neighborhood of Spanish and British territories bordering on some states and not many on others, and not on others, naturally confines the cause of quarrels more immediately to the borders. The bordering states, if any, will be those who, under the impulse of sudden irritation and quick sense of apparent interest or injury, will be most likely by direct violence to excite war with these nations, and nothing can so effectually obviate that danger as a national government whose wisdom and prudence will not be diminished by the passions which actuates the parties immediately interested. Hey, Squab. Good to see you. Good to see you. But not only fewer just causes of war will be given by the national government, but it will also be more in their power to accommodate and settle them amicably. They will be more temperate and cool, and in that respect, as well as in others, will be more in capacity to act advisedly than the offending state. The pride of the states, as well as of men, naturally disposes them to justify all their actions and opposes their acknowledging, correcting, or repairing their errors and offenses. The national government in such cases will not be affected by this pride, but will proceed with moderation and candor to consider and decide on the means most proper to extra, extricate, there we go. Oh, to remove them from the difficulties which threaten them. Extricate, got it. Besides, it is well known that acknowledgments, explanations, and compensations are often accepted as satisfactory from a strong united nation, which would be rejected as unsatisfactory if offered by a state or a confederacy of little consideration or power. In the year 1685, the state of Genoa, having offended Louis the 15th, that right? Yeah, the 15th, endeavored to appease him. He demanded that they should send their doge or chief magistrate, accompanied by 4 of their senators, to France to ask his pardon and receive his terms. They were obliged to submit to it for the sake of peace. Would he on any occasion either have demanded or have fully received the like humiliation from Spain or Britain or any other powerful nation? Publius. Or Publius. I think it's Publius. Publius. Whatever. I have to say it multiple times to get it right. The same subject. Continued. Still written by John Jay. To the people of the state of New York. My last paper assigned several reasons why the safety of the people would be best secured by union against the danger it may be exposed to by just causes of war given to other nations, and those reasons show that such causes would not only be more rarely given, but would also be more easily accommodated by a little national government than either by the state governments or the proposed little confederacies. But the safety of the people of America against dangers from foreign force depends not only on their forbearing to give just causes of war to other nations, but also on their placing and continuing themselves in such a situation as to not invite hostility or insult. For it need not be observed that there are pretended as well as just causes of war. So now we're getting into the pretended reasons for having a war. What do you think those could be? What could be a pretend reason that somebody would go to war? Well, let's see. It is too true, however disgraceful it may be to the human race, that nations in general will make war whenever they have a prospect of getting anything by it. Nay, absolute monarchs will often make war when their nations are to get nothing by it, but for the purposes and objects merely personal. Sound familiar? Such as a thirst for military glory, revenge for personal affronts, ambition, or private compacts to aggrandize or support their particular families or partisans. Sounds a little familiar, doesn't it? These and a variety of other motives which affected only the mind of the sovereign often lead him to engage in wars not sanctified by justice or the voice and interests of its people, but independent of these inducements to war, which are more prevalent in absolute monarchies, but which well deserve our attention. There are others which affect nations as often as kings, and some of them will, on examination, be found to grow out of our relative situation and circumstances. Sounds pretty damn familiar. Foreshadowing. With France and with Britain, we are rivals in the fisheries and can supply their markets cheaper than they can themselves, notwithstanding any efforts to prevent it by bounties on their own or duties on foreign fish. With them, with most other European nations, we are rivals in navigation and can carry trade, and we shall deceive ourselves if we suppose that any of them will rejoice to see it flourish. For as our carrying trade cannot increase without in some degree diminishing theirs, it is more their interest, and will be more their policy, to restrain than to promote it. In the trade to China and India, we interfere with more than one nation, inasmuch as it enables us to partake in advantages which they had in a manner monopolized, and we thereby supply ourselves with commodities which we use to purchase from them. Amazing how that worked. The extension of our own commerce and our own vessels cannot give pleasure to any nations who possess territories on or near this continent, because the cheapness and the excellence of our products, of our productions, added to the circumstance of vicinity, and the enterprise and address of our merchants and navigators, will give us a greater share in the advantages which those territories afford than consists with the wishes or policy of their respective sovereigns. Spain thinks it convenient to shut the Mississippi against us on one side, and Britain excludes us from the St. Lawrence on the other. Nor will either of them permit the other waters which are between them and us to become the means of mutual intercourse and traffic. Talking about mutual intercourse, yes. I did not have mutual intercourse. From these and such like considerations, which might, if consistent with prudence, be more amplified and detailed, it is easy to see that jealousies and uneasinesses may gradually slide into the minds and cabinets of other nations, and that we are not to expect that they should regard our advancement in union, in power, and consequence by land and by sea, with an eye of indifference and composure. The people of America are aware that inducements to war may arise out of these circumstances as well as from others not so obvious at present, and that they, whenever such inducements may find it fit in time and opportunity for operation, pretenses to color and justify them will not be wanting. Wisely, therefore, do they keep such they consider a union and good national government as necessary to put and keep them as such a situation as, instead of inviting war, will tend to repress and discourage it, that situation consists in best possible state of defense and necessarily depends on the government, the arms, and the resources of the entire country. As the safety of the whole is the interest of the whole and cannot be provided for without government, either one or many. Let us inquire whether the one good government is not relative to the object in question more competent than any other given number, whatever. One government can collect and avail itself of the talents and experience of the ablest men in whatever part of the Union they may be found. It can move on uniform principles of policy. It can harmonize, assimilate, protect the several parts and members, and extend the benefit of its foresight and precautions to each. In the formations of treaties, it will regard the interest of the whole and the particular interests of the parts as connected with that of the whole. It can apply the resources and the power of the whole to the defense of the particular part, and that more easily and expeditiously than state governments or separate confederacies can possibly do. For want of concert and unity of system, it can place the militia under one plan of discipline, and by putting their officers in a proper line of subordination to the chief magistrate, will, as it were, consolidate them into one corps, and thereby render them more efficient than if divided into 13 or into 3 or 4 distinct independent companies. So he's speaking to your battle-hardened boys there that understand having a efficient and a cohesive military. They can also understand having an efficient and cohesive government. Little did they know where this country would be heading in the near future. That people currently are asking for a separation of this great union. It's like they want to see the world burn, which I find quite amazing. Because what do they think is going to be the first part that gets burned? Do they think it's going to be them? Do they think it's going to be someone else? The world burns everything. It would be good for people to keep that in mind. We have heard much of the fleets of Britain, and the time may come, if we are wise, when the fleets of America may engage attention. But if one national government had not so regulated the navigation of Britain as to make it a nursery for seamen, if one national government had not called forth all the national means and materials for forming fleets, their prowess and their thunder would never have been celebrated. Let England have its navigation and fleet. Let Scotland have its navigation and fleet. Let Wales have its navigation and fleet. Let Ireland have its navigation and fleet. Let those 4 of the constituent parts of the British Empire be under 4 independent governments, and it's easy to perceive how soon they would have dwindled into comparative insignificance. Apply these facts to our case. Leave America divided into 13, or, if you please, into 3 or 4 independent governments. What armies could they raise and pay? What fleets could they ever hope to have? If one was attacked, would the others fly to its succor and spend their blood and money in its defense? Would there be no danger of their being flattered into neutrality by its specious promises, or seduced by too far great a fondness for peace to decline haphazarding their tranquility and present safety for the sake of neighbors for whom perhaps they have been jealous, and whose importance they are content to see diminished? Although such conduct would not be wise, it would nevertheless be natural. The history of the states of Greece and of other countries abounds with such instances, and it is not improbable that what has so often happened would, under similar circumstances, would surely happen again. But admit that they might be willing to help invaded state or confederacy, how and when, in what proportion shall aids of men and money be afforded? Who shall command the allied armies, and from which of them shall be receiving the orders? Who shall settle the terms of the peace? And in case of disputes, what umpire shall decide between them and compel acquiescence? Various difficulties and inconveniencies would be inseparable from such a situation. Whereas one government watching over the general and common interests and combining and directing the powers and resources of the whole would be free from all these embarrassments and conduce far more to the safety of the people. One government or one empire? One government, not talking about an empire. We're talking about solidifying the Constitution. That's what these papers were written for, was to solidify the Constitution. That everyone would adopt it, that everyone would ratify it, and that they would basically fall under the rule of an entire flag. You can call it an empire, but you can call it as a republic. A group of people getting together with the same thing in mind, whether their individual states have differences. I mean, how many times have you seen people online getting little spats and they get into their own little groups? They don't realize they're just separating each other, separating from all of the rest. And some people separate themselves from it. They want to become the hermits of the group. And I'm not saying it has to be groupthink, but to have a common cause, a common purpose of what they do. That's what they're talking about. Having a single purpose. Even if you disagree with your neighbor over what color they paint their house, and it might be an eyesore to you, you don't go over there and paint it or repaint it. But they also afford you the same consideration. But if someone comes in your neighborhood and starts painting all the houses, well, then all your neighbors are going to stand up and say, no, this isn't right. And they'll fight against it. I've seen it happen in my community where they wanted to turn the area that I live into a city. An oligarch, then, I guess you could look at it like that, but not really. No, just having, and we're still pretty early on in what they're considering, what they're talking about. What they're talking about is keeping us and at this point in time, there were only 13 states or 13 colonies, and there was always the possibility of combining them into one nation and call them America or the United States of America, to unite them all under one banner. And the reason for uniting them under one banner, whereas, even now you have people that are just like, well, we don't care if California drops off the earth. Well, having the United States sort of keeps people from kicking it over. That's the purpose of it. It's crazy. Connection is unstable. I hope it's not unstable. Somebody must be downloading something on probably my wife. Hopefully I'm not losing connection. It might be acting a little bit funky, but let me see if I can close that. See if that helps out. There we go. I don't have a whole lot of stuff running, but man, it will suck some juice down. One oligarchy fun. This is fun. Love yous. I'm sick. I'll be back on replay for sure. Keep it up, Shizzy. Hugs to you and the wifey. Aw, thank you. I appreciate it. And get to feeling better. Really, I want you feeling much, much better. Let's see. It would be free from these embarrassments, people. No, we still have more to go. We still have one more of these writings. So I'll keep this going, but hopefully I don't get too drunk or too dizzy. But whatever may be our situation, whether firmly united under one national government or split into a number of confederacies, certain it is that foreign nations will know and view it exactly as it is, and they will act towards us accordingly. If they see that our national government is efficient and well administered, our trade prudently regulated, our militia properly organized and disciplined, our resources and finances discreetly managed, our credit reestablished, our people free, contented, and united, they will be much more disposed to cultivate our friendship than provoke our resentment. If, on the other hand, they find us either destitute of an effectual government, each state doing its own right or wrong as to its rulers may seem convenient, or split into 3 or 4 independent and probably discordant republics or confederacies, one inclining to Britain, the other to France, a third to Spain, and perhaps played off against each other by the 3, what a poor, pitiful figure will America make in their eyes? How liable would she become not only to their contempt, but to their outrage? And how soon would dear bought experience proclaim that when a people or family so divided, it never fails to be against themselves. Damn. That's a hard thought. How easy would it be to conquer a nation that pits itself against itself? Pretty deep. To the people of the state of New York, Queen Anne, on her letter of the 1st of July, 1706, to the Scotch Parliament, makes some observations on the importance of the union then forming between England and Scotland, which merit our attention, shall present the public with 1 or 2 extracts from it. An entire and perfect union will be the solid foundation of lasting peace. It will secure your religion, liberty, and property. Remove the animosities among yourselves and the jealousies and differences between our 2 kingdoms. It must increase your strength, riches, and trade, and by this union the whole island, being joined in affection and free from all apprehensions of different interest, will be enabled to resist all its enemies. We most earnestly recommend to you calmness and unanimity. Unanimity. Thank you. In this great and weighty affair, that the union may be brought to a happy conclusion, being the only effectual way to secure our present and our future happiness, and disappoint the designs of our and your enemies, who will doubtless on occasion use their utmost endeavors to prevent or delay this union. It was remarked in the preceding paper that weaknesses and divisions at home would invite dangers from abroad, and that nothing would tend more to secure us from them than union, strength, and good government within ourselves. This subject is copious and cannot easily be exhausted. The history of Great Britain is the one with which we are generally the best acquainted, and it gives us many useful lessons. we may profit by their experience without paying the price which it costs them, although it seems obvious to common sense that the people of such an island should be but one nation. We find that they were for ages divided into three, and that those three were almost constantly embroiled in quarrels and wars with one another. Notwithstanding, their true interest with respect to the continental nations was really the same. Yet by the arts and policy and practices of those nations, their mutual jealousies were perpetually kept inflamed. And for a long series of years, they were far more inconvenient and troublesome than they were useful and assisting to each other. Now you see why they're wanting to form BRICS. Staying united, even though they're divided, they have different things going on. But if the world sees them as being the largest superpowers, who then would bother to go up against them? Should the people of America divide themselves into 3 or 4 nations, would not the same thing happen? Would not similar jealousies arise and be in like manner cherished, instead of their being joined in affection and free from all apprehension of different interests? Envy and jealousy would soon extinguish confidence and affection, and the partial interests of each confederacy, instead of the general interests of all America, would be the only objects of their policy and pursuit. Hence, like most other bordering nations, they would always be either involved in disputes and war or live in the constant apprehension of them. The most sanguine advocates for 3 or 4 confederacies cannot reasonably suppose that they would long remain exactly on equal footing in point of strength, even if it was possible to form them so at first. But admitting that to be practicable, yet what human contrivance can secure the continuance of such equality, independent of those local circumstances which tend to beget and increase power in one part and to impede its progress in another? We must advert to the effects of that superior policy and good management, which would probably distinguish the government of one above the rest, and by which their relative equality in strength and consideration would be destroyed. For it cannot be presumed that the same degree of sound policy, prudence, and foresight would uniformly be observed by each of these confederacies for a long succession of years. Whenever and from whatever causes it might happen, and happen it would, that any of these nations or confederacies should arise on the scale of political importance much above the degree of her neighbors, that moment would those neighbors behold her with envy and with fear, but with those passions would lead them to countenance, if not to promote, whatever might promise to diminish her importance, and would also restrain them from measures calculated to advance or even to secure her prosperity. Much time would not be necessary to enable her to discern these unfriendly dispositions. She would soon begin not only to lose confidence in her neighbors, but also feel a disposition equally unfavorable to them. Distrust naturally creates distrust, and by nothing is goodwill and kind conduct can more speedily changed than by invidious jealousies and uncandid imputations, whether impressed or implied. The North is generally the region of strength, and many local circumstances render it probable that the most northern of the proposed confederacies would, at a period not very distant, be unquestionably more formidable than any of the others. No sooner would this become evident than the northern hive would excite the same ideas and sensations in the southern parts of America which formerly did the southern parts of Europe, nor does it appear to be a rash conjecture that young swarms might often be tempted to gather honey in the more blooming fields and milder air of their luxurious and more delicate neighbors. They who well consider the history of similar divisions and confederacies will find abundant reasons to apprehend that those in contemplation would in no other sense be neighbors than they would be borderers, that they would neither love nor trust one another, but on the contrary would be a prey to discord, jealousy, and mutual injuries. In short, that they would place us exactly on the situations in each of some nations doubtless wish to see us, formidable only to each other. From these considerations, it appears that these gentlemen are greatly mistaken who suppose that alliances, offensive and defensive, might be formed between these confederacies and would produce that combination and union of wills, of arms, and of resources which would be necessary to put and keep them in a formidable state of defense against foreign enemies. When did the independent states into which Britain and Spain were formerly divided combine such an alliance or unite their forces against a foreign enemy? The proposed confederacies will be distinct nations. Each of them would have its commerce with foreigners to regulate by distinct treaties. And as their productions and commodities are different and proper for different markets, so would these treaties be essentially different. Different commercial concerns must create different interests, and of course, different degrees of political attachment to and connection with different foreign nations. Hence, it might and probably would happen that the foreign nation with whom the Southern Confederacy might be at war would be the one with whom the Northern Confederacy would be most desirous of preserving peace and friendship. An alliance so contrary to their immediate interest would not therefore be easy to form, nor if formed would be observed and fulfilled with perfect good faith. Definitely. Nay, it is more probable than in America, as in Europe, neighboring nations acting under the impulse of opposite interests and unfriendly passions would frequently be found taking different sides. Considering our distance from Europe, it would be more natural for these confederacies to apprehend danger from one another than from distant nations, and therefore that each of them should be more desirous to guard against the others by the aid of foreign alliances than to guard against foreign dangers by alliances between themselves. And here, let us not forget how much more easy it is to receive foreign fleets into our ports and foreign armies into our countries than it is to persuade or compel them to depart. How many conquests did the Romans and others make in the characters of allies, and what innovations did they under the same character introduce into the governments of those whom they pretended to protect? Let candid men judge then whether the division of America into any given number of independent sovereignties would tend to secure us against the hostilities and proper interference of foreign nations. Solid stuff. Talking about not wanting the Americas to be ununited, to be into separate confederacies. Let me pull this up. If you think about it, and I'll show this here because it's quite impressive when you think about it, what the 13 colonies were. see. Let's do this. Show this tab instead. There we go. So here's your 13 colonies. Right there. That there is your 13 colonies. Quite impressive if you think about it. That this right here was the proclamation line of 1763. Hudson Bay Company, Indian Reserve, West Florida, East Florida, had Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina, Virginia, Minnesota, or Maine. It's not Minnesota because Minnesota's like over here. That's Maryland. Damn it. So stupid. Delaware, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, New Hampshire, New York, Massachusetts, Rhode Island. And not sure what that one says. I'm not going to even try to read it. To Mass. Oh, Mass. Anyhow, so this was what the 13 colonies were. They didn't have this portion of it. They didn't have all of this. They had none of it. None of this was theirs. This is all they were concerned with, this little strip right here. Spain owned this over here. So they knew of this area. And they pretty much pushed the Indians away from the ocean, left them with Florida and Western Florida, swamp down here. Didn't really have much use for it. And this was a direct line heading over. It had good passage. Amazing. Amazing that they were more concerned with keeping these groups together. There were thoughts that they would separate Georgia, South Carolina, and probably in through here. And then they would separate these right through in here. And then these in this little section. Or they would keep these little sections here, separate these out, maybe 2, 3, but separate it out into 3 or 4. That was Bigfoot territory. Bigfoot's still there. Prove me wrong. Prove me that Bigfoot's not there, but you can't do it. But yes, so this little section of land that they hadn't even experienced the rest of it yet. They hadn't even figured out how rich the soil was in all these little Midwestern states. They hadn't even hit the West Coast. All of this was wild, undiscovered, and was barely taking shape. And you'll see that most of these borders of these states are bordered by water. Most of them are. Because Virginia was one whole place. It wasn't just Virginia and West Virginia. It was just Virginia. It's amazing to think that all these little places separated by water. Each one could be a country into their own. Not with population, just with the amount of land that was there. That's funny. The boundary between Mississippi River and the 49th parallel, uncertain due to misconception that the source of the Mississippi River lay further north. Oh, okay. That's what they had. They had the Roanoke Colony, Virginia Colony, New England, Rhode Island, Royal Charter, New Netherlands ceded to England in 1667. Treaty of Urtwright, I think that's right. Province of Georgia, French and Indian War. Yes, that was pretty rough. Independence declared in 1776. Unanimous Declaration of the United States. and the Treaty of Paris, 1783. Amazing. It's amazing to see how fast that we've fallen into division in this country. How fast we've fallen into division amongst other peoples, other lands, how easy it is to subvert the thoughts and the minds of our wonderful fellow Americans, to be divided into haves and have-nots and wants and want-nots, and it's ridiculous. It's amazing to see how fast a group of people could turn on another group of people. Over a few words. And a lot of the divisions that you see happening in the world today are planned. You see, there's a lot of people that want to support Santis. Ron DeSantis. There we go. Thank you. Ron DeSantis. A lot of people want to support him. A lot of people want to support Trump. A lot of people want to support Kennedy. A lot of people want to support this person, that person, the other. Doesn't matter which way you fall. As long as you're falling for the person and you're supporting the person that's going to do the most to support this country, to build it up rather than tear it down. To divide us is not something that we want our next leader to be doing. I mean, and sometimes that division isn't even being caused by them. That division is being caused from outside sources. Think about Trump's presidency. What was the big division with Trump? It was constant people not liking him. Just didn't like him. Didn't like the way that he talked. It's not that they didn't like what he said. It's just they never understood what he said. They never listened to what he was saying. The big division with Obama, for unbeknownst to me, was because he was half white. Amazing to me that people would be against him for being half white. I never really considered it. I didn't support him, but that had nothing to do with him being half white. The only reason I didn't support him is I didn't like his policies. Would I have done something drastic to prove a point because I didn't like his policies? No. The most drastic thing that could happen would be to vote him out next election. And they didn't. He served 2 terms successfully, keeping us in multiple wars, even creating some new ones. It's good stuff. And they were expecting that Hillary Clinton would be able to run this country in the same way. Plus, she's a woman. You're just mean if you go up against a woman. Well, that's not what happened. He was mean regardless. He was a bull in a china shop. And not only did he beat her profusely bad, where people could not even imagine how he had done it, how he pulled it off, how those states had actually supported this guy. And surprisingly enough, next election, how many people voted? Probably the largest turnout ever for both parties. Don't know if it was that important of an election. A lot of people supposed that it was. And he lost. He never served that second term till he runs again. Now he's running for another turn, but he has to get through the primaries. Can he pull it out of his hat again? Do you think he can win the primaries again? Or do you think that, his own people will stab him in the back? Atu brute. Who's to know? He could pull it out. He could easily win. But then again, so could any of them all. So could Biden. He could get a second term. And you have to be prepared for that. You have to be prepared to say, yes, he's still there. Well, Squaw Bob, I would agree with you. I would tend to agree with you. But like I said, it's not for me to decide. I mean, I can decide on my own, but throwing a fit over it isn't going to change anything. Because all that does is distract from taking control of the situation. That's why I would never go to some place like Washington, unless I don't like large crowds, to hear someone speak, to go make sure that somebody does the job that I asked them to do. You would never see me there. You would never see me in that position, because to me that was ridiculous, and I warned about it. Some of my friends were very much wanting me to go. Say, well, if you don't go, you're not showing any sort of support for your country. Well, those friends are not friends of mine anymore. Haven't been for quite some time. Well, ever since that shit. I refuse to follow into a group think. I think it's better if people think for themselves, grow for themselves. Good to see you, Twitty. Good to see you. I think it's best if people think for themselves and grow, learn from their experiences, and not be divisive. Had I been old enough, I don't think you would either. Yeah. Very big possibility. Ultimatums tend to destroy things. Well, sometimes. Sometimes ultimatums are a good deterrent. I mean, there's always an ultimatum. If you attack me, I'm going to defend myself, and it's gonna end up really bad. The ultimatum to that is, don't attack me. We shake hands and go on our merry ways. Or attack me and find out what happens. So fuck around and find out kind of things. But yes, ultimatums overall destroy. And part of the reason for the discussion on this particular topic was, whenever you've got a divided country, when you have a divided group, it's not as powerful, it's not as strong. And it's the whole bundle of sticks thing. We'll never get back to the good old days. No, I disagree. I think currently we are actually in some of our best days. That's just my thought. I could be wrong. But about the time that you think that it couldn't get any worse, tell you to hold my beer. What if these are, that's exactly my point. What if these are the good old days currently? It's hard to imagine that things can get worse in this country. It's hard to imagine that we could become divided as a nation, divided as humans. Divided as next door neighbors, as inconspicuous people on the internet, become so divided. Think about how quickly it turns into chaos on Twitter, or even in this space on YouTube, how fast it turns into chaos. How fast one small disagreement or argument can turn everybody, force people to pick sides. And it doesn't have to be that way. Never had to be. Never had to be that way. Nobody had to pick any sides. All they had to do was take care of themselves, be aligned with everybody, and be good towards everybody. And I understand that sometimes it's easier to kick someone whenever they're acting a shit. But think about how fast things have turned south over in Ukraine, Russia. Think about how fast that stuff is going south. Over disagreements, over arguments, over piddly shit. Such as, we won this election. No, you didn't win this election. This is our land. It's not your land. Piddly shit. Now, Russia, as it was all of those countries. Ukraine was part of it. All of these countries that Russia had control over, or Prussia at the time, how much area they dominated. And now they're uniting up again. Russia is uniting up with other people, other allies, old allies become new allies, all with one goal. Because for far too long, the United States of America has strayed away from its goal and its purpose to be united, but not to be aggressive. It doesn't do any good to be aggressive towards other countries. That's why it's easier to fight a proxy war. Have somebody else fight it. We'll just send them ammunition to fight a war. And that country is easily manipulated. And they'll take everything that you give them, and they will give you nothing in return. And then it's just a matter of time before you're at war with them. And how fine would it be for America to own Ukraine, right there on the border of Russia, to handle that whole region? How quick do you think America would jump on owning all of that land? Oh, maybe not this year. Maybe not in 10 years. Maybe not in 20 years. But at some point in time, owning all of that territory might be really helpful in controlling the oil situation. Make it easier to move troops in. Nobody's going to pay any attention when you move a large army into a smaller country, except to reinforce the border. What's to say? I don't know. I'm just talking up my ass. I don't know shit. But find peace. Peace is much, much more desirable than war. Battling with people, arguing with people, fighting with people. I like peace. I like peace. Carrots. But maybe in a few decades, a couple of decades, I would say. Similar, maybe. Could be. I don't like the look of it. I'm sure Russia doesn't like the look of it either. I'm pretty sure. Anyhow, I guess I shouldn't be such a downer. I guess I shouldn't be such a downer. I feel like I'm such a downer today. Actually, I'm in a really good mood. No anger, no unhappiness. Everything's good. Seeing if there's anything interesting that happened in the news. I'm sure there was something I'm missing out on. Something. I'm always missing out on something. Let's see what we got here. What do we have? I don't see it. I know it's here somewhere. That's not it. Let's see. Nope, I'm not pulling that up. Make peace is never a downer. I don't know. Some people might disagree there. And I'm looking. I know that there's something here. All right, let's see what we got. First Coast News. Now I'm not going to pull that up. Oh, that's funny. Let's see where it is. Tomorrow, well, let's see. Let's see what we got here. Now, this isn't from me. This is from The Independent. Let's see. See what we happen. Play some Red Dead Redemption. Oh, Tweety. As much as I would love to, it is not going to happen tonight. So let's see what they had to say. Nothing.
Yes, I guess something. All right, we're just reallocating more server capability to be able to handle the load here. It's really going crazy. So yeah, I'm obviously very excited to have Governor DeSantis make this.
So it looks like they had nothing but technical difficulties. Just like the SpaceX rocket, there were problems right from the launch, and it pretty much crashed soon thereafter. That's pretty funny. That's pretty funny. But it looks like there was something on here. Crash could impact government launches ad on Twitter Spaces. Launches presidential campaign on Twitter Spaces. Elon Musk hosts DeSantis for 2024 Twitter speech. Let's see what we got.
republic in the history of mankind. Major tech platform
Okay.
happened was when
Nothing.
we did, as you say.
Nothing.
Steve can unmute then.
I
Nothing.
do. And thank you both.
They seem.
Nothing.
Yes. Yeah.
Nothing. Nothing. Just people talking shit. Nothing impressive. So it doesn't seem like they've got a whole lot of information. Protests against DeSantis, meet with donors at Four Seasons Hotel in Miami, launch this White House bid, CNN, Channel 18, there's 100 watching. I could just pull up Twitter Spaces, see what exactly happened or is happening. We'll see. Play some Red Dead Redemptions. Oh man. Just every time I see that, it's just like, yeah, I want to. But, it's not that my audience really enjoys it all the time. Let's see what we got here. Live. No. Let's see. Not seeing it anywhere in there. DC Drano and Trump advisors. Let's see what we've got here. Let's search for. Let's see. There we go. We'll present.
Real.
There we go.
So, with that, I guess I should turn it over to.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
let's see. So, yeah, Governor, there's been a lot of speculation over the last couple of months about your plans. I understand that you may have an announcement to make. We've got, I think, a record audience assembled here. Probably the biggest room that's probably ever been assembled online. What would you like to tell them?
Pick up the speed here.
Well, I am running for president of the United States to lead our great American comeback. Look, we know our country's going in the wrong direction. We see it with our eyes and we feel it in our bones. Our southern borders collapse. Drugs are pouring into the country. Our cities are being hollowed out by spiking crime. The federal government's making it harder for the average family to make ends meet and to attain and maintain a middle-class lifestyle. And our president, well, he lacks vigor, flounders in the face of our nation's challenges, and he takes his cues from the woke mob. I don't think it has to be this way. American decline is not inevitable. It is a choice. And we should choose a new direction, a path that will lead to American revitalization. We must restore sanity to our nation. This means embracing fiscal and economic sanity. Stop pricing hardworking Americans out of a good standard of living through inflationary borrow, print, and spending policies. And please embrace American energy independence. This also means replacing the woke mind virus with reality, facts, and enduring principles. Merit must trump identity politics. We must return normalcy to our communities. America's a sovereign country. Our borders must be respected. We cannot have foreigners pouring into our country illegally by the millions. We cannot allow drug cartels to poison our population with fentanyl. Public deserves safe communities, and law and order must be maintained in American cities. We can't have inmates running the asylum, and we must reject attacks on the men and women of law enforcement. We also must reestablish integrity in our institutions. This includes the military. I'm proud to be a Navy veteran, an Iraq veteran, and I revere our services. But when revered institutions like those in our military are more concerned with matters not central to the mission, whether it's global warming or gender ideology and pronouns, morale declines and recruiting suffers. You need to eliminate these distractions, and we need to get focused on the core mission. We also cannot have true constitutional government if the most significant issues are decided by the whims of unelected bureaucrats rather than the people's elected representatives. Reestablishing integrity in our institutions means we must reinvigorate our constitutional system by returning the government to its rightful owners, we the people. No social or economic transformation without representation. Truth needs to be our foundation. Common sense can no longer be an uncommon virtue. And in Florida, we proved it could be done. We chose facts over fear, education over indoctrination, law and order over rioting and disorder. We held the line when freedom hung in the balance. And we're thriving as a result. Florida is the nation's fastest growing state. We're #1 in net in-migration, #1 in new business formations, recently ranked #1 in education. We have a 50-year low crime rate and one of the lowest tax and debt per capita.
And just so everybody knows, Trump DeSantis 2024, Announcing Twitter was a subtle FU to the classic media. Genius because it's getting more coverage than it would have if he announced on a classic network. Well, and then the classic networks are actually having to pay any attention to it. That's the beauty of it. Well, what we're going to do is we're going to flip this thing over on its ear. It's going to be over on Rumble. And why? Because YouTube does not deserve it. You deserve it, my fine audience, but I'm going to move this thing over to Rumble. So if you want to catch it over there, I'll throw the link up here shortly. Just give me a minute and I will bring that up for you. But we will be going Rumble only to hear what kind of cluster if it goes. Rumble requires verification to comment. I don't know. I don't have to worry about mine at all. I've never had any problems over there. Hop in chat. Boom. And then we'll pull up Rumble there. Oops. Something happened. There it is. Damn it. Give me a second. And we'll pull up Rumble. I'm so silly. Let's see. Stream it. Rumble. There we go. Flip Kennedy Gabbard 2024. Yeah, that could happen too. I don't know if Rumble actually has that verification. I've never had any problems on Rumble at all. Like posting comments or anything of that sort. No issues. So I don't know. But I don't know. I don't know. But if you are happy and you know it, clap your hands because that's where we're going. We're going over to Rumble for the second half of this, and I will post this in here. Copy, boom, paste. There we go. And that is the link for Rumble. Pin the message up there. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to change my banner here. Because, damn, it'll be good. It will be good. It's going to get dark. It's going to get dark soon. Since May 2014, Rumble requires a cell phone number to verify. I don't know. I've seen you over on Rumble. Seen you over on Rumble. I don't know. It's May 14th. 10 days ago. May. I mean, I've not had any problem. Not had any problem. But I've got quite a few viewers over there watching currently. Verify your account to chat. I don't know. I don't see it. I don't know. Maybe it's because I want to make sure that everybody's, all on the up and up. By the way, everybody, make sure you hit the thumbs up on YouTube on your way out. But we are going to be ending this, and then we will be jumping over to Rumble. I'm going to go out the way that I came in, and it will be showing up over there in just a short bit. We'll give it a little bit of And we'll give it a little bit of this. A little bit of the end of the show here and a little bit of the beginning of the show there.
Exótica.